Restream's got stuff through.
I really need to sort out some kind of dampening on my floor because I said to you last time doing the podcast that I've got those two NASs behind, like under my desk, right? They are not touching the desk. The microphone isn't touching the desk, but the microphone can't have a shock mount attached to it. And as the drives spin up, it's like you hear the kind of grindy sound that the hard drive makes. That comes through on my audio.
Isn't the average sound your hard drive makes more like a...
Well, no, because you got to remember that would be an SSD. My SSDs just go, don't want to do it anymore, and then just give up.
Your FSDs go...
Oh, they're fizzed out. Whoops.
Oh no.
Oh, I start to panic about that recently.
I fear disturbance in the force. I hear the sounds of thousands of NAND chips breaking.
It's like, oh my god. I swear, like Samsung or whoever, they're just like, you know what? We know where this is going. Just snap it in half before you even get to it.
Yeah.
Save him the trouble.
In Samsung's HQ, there's the shit box, and it's where all the hard drives that fail go. And special customers get shipped from that box.
They see my address and they're like, send it his way. He'll love it. Yeah. 5 months. Amazon had a dodgy deal recently, right? My mate Divine almost got a Western Digital Black M2 for £13 because they mislabeled a £130 drive.
Yeah, but it's a Western Digital though, so...
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that. The house always wins. He says, he messaged me later, he's like, cancel my order, the bastards.
There'll be stuff in their T&Cs about that.
Bless them. Bless them.
I got a good deal on the Amazon Prime deal recently. They had a meat thermometer that was on for like 30 quid down to £7.99.
Oh, there you go.
So I bought myself a new meat thermometer.
So you're not thinking of going vegan this year then?
No, strange enough, no.
No? You sure?
No. The day I go vegan, I think it's the day I will require you to come out and shoot me.
Gladly, mate. Gladly. No problem. If you said to me, Skazz, I'm going plant-based, I wouldn't have that much of a problem. But the second you said vegan, I would probably already have the shotgun loaded and pointed at your face.
Yeah. And let's be honest, if I went vegan, you definitely know about it because I'm required to tell you. I'm required to tell everybody I know that I'm vegan.
Well, I'd just open up the Christmas hamper and find loads of extra vegetables.
Yeah. Tofu turkey.
I was like, no, Ram. No. Just no. Just no.
Anyway. How you been, Skazz?
I have been alive. And, touch wood, we've not had any hardware failures in literally days.
Days? My word.
I did have a failed file transfer, though, that did corrupt a file, but other than that, everything's been fine.
I mean, that's technically a hardware failure. You go down to its basic level.
No, that was a hiccup on the network. I don't know why there was a hiccup on the network.
Hiccup on the network is still a physical connection there somewhere.
Nope. No. Everything is still alive, though. Ticking along. Having occasional anger, like outbursts, but...
When you think about it, everything that goes wrong in life is a hardware failure.
Yeah. Heart attack, hardware failure.
Hardware failure, yeah.
Cancer, hardware failure.
Can you imagine that? I say, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, some of your husband's cells have been corrupted in a transfer.
Yeah, we were looking for him to duplicate. We were going for duplicates, and they got corrupt. And I'm sorry.
It meant to cut paste, but it's copy pasted instead, which is a problem.
And now I'm afraid to say it's terminal.
Yeah,
we can't make it stop.
We tried everything we could, Mrs. Smith. I'm afraid your husband blue screened. I'm sorry.
Colonel panic, mate. We tried jump starting him again, but proper hardware failure, mate. He's brown bread.
Yeah. So it's all right. He's in a better place now. The bit's been out the back. Because every IT department has to have a box with dead hardware in it.
So what's Alzheimer's, a memory leak?
That's a hard drive corruption, slow hard. That's your smart data failing you, telling you alerting. Yeah.
Well, but no, could that not be a RAM failure?
Well, it depends how you want to consider the human brain. Do you consider that a hard drive or RAM?
I mean, see, that's
Not being funny. Because if you knock somebody out and they come back to, they do remember stuff in the past, don't they? They don't like lose it all.
no, yeah, but they're not proper out though, are they?
No, but then people who like died and have been brought back to life, they remember stuff.
No, maybe we could say it's a hard drive. Maybe.
I would say it's hard. Yeah, I would say it's a hard drive. I think you have got some degree of memory there because people do get short-term amnesia, and the RAM gets flashed. So I think there is sort of stuff going on there.
They lose their memory because they don't manage to copy it back from RAM fast enough.
Yeah. What you really want to know is where the network cable goes in the human body. Not good.
Nah.
Not good.
Nah.
I'm just seeing that scene in Red Dwarf where Kryger gets turned human. It's like, I've located the charging port, but what I can do, nothing will stay in.
Bless him. That poor bastard.
Yeah. So how did the 24 hours go then, Skazz? Oh, Skazz did 24 hour especially our live stream. just throw it out there.
Yeah, I did. Rando's 24 hours was last Friday through Saturday. And I'm not going to lie, man, it's probably one of the best 24 hours I've done.
Oh, good.
And of the last 3 years, at least, because we did the first one was me, you, Bard,
Yep.
Middlemeister. Then it was me, you, Zaber.
Yeah,
Then it was
COVID
me.
hit. There was you.
Then it was me.
There was you.
And this year it was me.
Yep.
But people joined in on the call after about 4 hours. So after the first 4 hours, I actually had support, which was quite nice. And hours and hours and hours just flew by. And it wasn't until probably around 2 a.m. that I started to flag. And then I had like a second win by about 5 or 6 in the morning, and just fucking managed to steamroll through after that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always used to say when I used to do night shifts, about 4 a.m. was when I used to flag.
Yeah.
And then you're right, about 6 a.m. you get a second wind. And apparently it's to do with your circadian rhythm. Is it circadian or circadian rhythm?
It's that one.
It's where your all humans dip about 4 a.m. in the morning.
See, that's interesting because that's when I was expecting to flag between 4 and 6, because that'd normally be when my head hits the pillow anyway. But because I hadn't slept the day before either, I'd only got a couple of hours of sleep before the 24 hours. I tanked early. I tanked really early, and at one point I was practically like just sat there, mouth agape, just staring into space. Like basically you got it. Like my character stopped moving on screen and everything. People were talking to me, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I really don't know what I'm doing.
So please make it stop.
No,
Please
mate,
make the
I really thought I was gonna screw that one hardcore. And then, as I say, I took a quick break, grabbed myself another coffee, came back and said, look, can we change the level that we're on, the stage that we're on? And then as soon as we changed the stage to something a little bit more active, my brain kicked back in, and it was solid. Because we tried to take it easy for the last few hours, but that's probably one of the worst things you could do.
Yeah.
Because as you're starting to feel tired, if you start to kind of do anything that will make your mind go numb, you're done. It's over.
Yeah.
So we managed to pick up the pace again and last out the last few hours, but it was neat. We went through. I finished off Final Fantasy VII Remake because I was doing that on my own channel, and I wanted to finish that. Went through the last part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was about 4 hours, and then I thought I was going to be doing a lot of stuff on the Steam Deck. So I had like Necromunda installed and a bunch of other stuff, but I then got a call after Final Fantasy finished, and we hooked up my new laptop into the stream PC, and we ended up firing up Overwatch 2 because you can run Overwatch 2 on Steam Deck, but it wasn't prepped. It was something I already had installed on my laptop because the laptop runs Windows 11. Just anything that's Windows exclusive, I tend, or like anything that isn't on Steam, I just install it on my laptop. If it is on Steam, and maybe even possibly slightly Linux compatible, I'll put it on the Steam Deck. But we fired up Overwatch, and it was me, Stewie 3D, Dark Rider, Black Rain, and Inky the Obvious, and we just fucking went ham in Overwatch. It was absolutely hilarious. I'm not a huge fan of Overwatch 2. It's a 5-player online hero shooter, kind of like Team Fortress 2. Not really my kind of groove, but it was because there was people there. There were people there. We were laughing and joking and taking the piss.
Because you had a full team and you're on the same side, because you're on the same side.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes a difference when you're like that, doesn't it? Because you sort of, you know each other, and you can talk to each other.
It didn't matter that we were all shit either, because
No.
we knew each other. We were just playing to have a laugh. Whereas if you're playing with randoms, you don't know who you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get a try-hard, like a Sweat, who just wants to win the match, no matter the cost kind of thing. You don't know if you're going to get someone that's just kind of bumming about and not giving a shit. So it was nice to have a group of friends together and just prattling about on it. It was really, 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 really fun. Like I say, surprisingly, because it is not my kind of game. But yeah, we ended up playing that for something like 7 hours. It was insane. I was like, oh yeah, we'll probably play a couple matches. It won't last long, and then I'll go back to doing like Final Fantasy, or I'll fire up like Necromunda or one of the, like Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever I've got installed on the Steam Deck. No, 7 hours. 7 hours of Overwatch, and then everyone had to bail after that. And me, Inky the Obvious, and Black Rain. Rain was playing a different game, but me and Inky ended up firing up Monster Hunter Rise, Sunbreak, the new expansion to Monster Hunter Rise, and we blasted through a few missions in that, and that was pretty fun. So yeah, all in, it was a very, 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 very smooth live stream. For some of the nightmares I've had in the past, it went surprisingly well. I was quite shocked at how completely hammered my graphics card was, though, in my PC, because it was encoding the stream to sending the stream to Restream for you, wasn't it? But it was also sending it to Caster for me, and my GPU was sat at something like 60% with everything running on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was terrible, because I have an RTX 3080. All right, it's not a top of the line card, but it's no slouch, right?
It's definitely a decent card.
It was like 3 down from top in the last generation, and to see that hit 60%, because some of the folks were like, "Hey, can we play some VR on the stream?" I was like, well, maybe, but as soon as I saw that encoder, as soon as I saw my GPU utilization hit 60%, I was like, no, we are not playing anything at all in VR whilst the machine is getting completely murdered like this. However, we think we might have figured it out. I wouldn't exactly say it's a bug in Windows, but if you have a particularly grunty processor, and it's like a 30 series or whatever, if you had a 10 series, like what I came from and what you're on, this wouldn't apply. Or we've never seen it. But when we all got to 30 series, I have it, Zaber has it, Stewie 3D has it, and I have it over 2 devices. GPU utilization just firing up OBS instantly hits 30%.
Oh.
Without actually doing anything on it, you can have all blank scenes 30%. And what's happening is OBS is ramping up to stop the GPU from sitting in a low power mode. So, like, it will downclock itself to not use too much power. So let's say you've got let's say your clocks normally sit at like a gigahertz, or 850 meg or whatever. Yeah, just pretend, right? The card, when not being used, will go into a low power state at, say, like 200 megahertz. Not that low, but I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass at this point. So what OBS does is it says, right, I need you to use this amount of power. So I guess to stop like hiccuping and hitching. And it will just force it to go into its higher power state until you launch other software, which will then cause GPU utilization in OBS to just go down through the floor.
Yeah, because that's software's doing the job for you.
Yeah, and that's just to force. That's to force force it out of like a power management mode or whatever. So that was a bit of a like, because like right now I'm streaming at, admittedly it's only 1080 30, but my GPU's only sat at 11%. So, you know, if you were to do it twice or at like 60 FPS, you'd probably be talking between like, I don't know, 20, 30, 35 tops. But to go all the way up to 60 was like, what the fuck is going on here? So we ended up having to cancel all the VR stuff we had in mind because I wasn't sure what was going on.
No, but it was actually something. That was a software issue, rather.
In theory, I haven't been able to dig any deeper on because I haven't streamed really since the 24 hours, so I haven't really been able to like hardcore test it. But like right now, as I say, I'm doing 1080 30, and it's happily sat at like 10%.
Yeah.
So, I probably wouldn't have wanted to risk playing a game or something heavy like VR on the machine if the GPU was already being hammered like that, because the frame rates would just fall through the floor. Assuming that there wasn't that power management thing going on. But yeah, all in the stream was all right. The stream was all right. I kind of wish we could have done some VR stuff. That would have been really fun.
Yeah.
But maybe next year.
Next year, I mean, this year was unfortunate because we had planned.
It was July we planned, didn't we? Or June? March.
June when April was
June,
over.
yeah, June.
It was over. Unfortunately, shit happened this year at that time.
Yeah, life happened.
So, yeah, unfortunately. So, but next year, Zaber's coming over again next year. Maybe we'll try and arrange something for then, and we can actually do a proper group trade for our live stream.
See, what I said to people that I wanted to do, rather than it just being like one solo machine, I wanted to run a server machine, so like run my gaming PC Belial as the main machine, and then have, say, your machine, another one of my machines, and something for Zaber hooked up, and then have us all stream to our own individual channels, and then have one stream go to Rand Nerds, and then we could go, right, ram us your shift kind of thing, or like if I need to take a break, switch the scene over to you playing whatever it is that you're going to play. If then when I need to go, switch over to Zaber, and then we could literally do rotations without actually just
have the break and between each game, as it were. Yeah, that's doable.
Because I thought that'd be kind of neat, or even still do the stream in shifts, but have it so that it's all individual machines with their own individual stuff installed, their own individual preferences, their own hardware, and all that kind of stuff, rather than just trying to scum one machine. And hope that we've got games in our library that we actually want to play. Actually to get like some proper stuff set up, and actually then be able to do proper multiplayer as well, rather than trying to find games on PC that allow for couch co-op, because that's a fucking nightmare.
Well, I want many.
So think about it. If we all had our own hardware here, we could all play like Warzone or like Dark Tide or something. Like we could actually play the bigger games on the 24 hours, whereas now we're actually the selection we have is actually quite limited.
Yes. Well, generally speaking, there's a few multiplayer games, but generally what usually has happened in the past is one person plays, the other watch.
Yeah, which is kind of a waste of resources, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's fun. Don't get me wrong. That's still fun, but it would probably be nice if we could just get everyone involved, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was neat.
Well, hopefully next year will be a better year.
Touch wood.
Touch wood. So.
Yeah, I'm in karma debt until 2024, so don't push it.
Oh dear. Yes, but I'm not, so perhaps I'll rub mine will rub off on you.
Will it now?
But you never know.
You never know. Well, I'll take what I can get, Ram. But no,
well, we had a good time.
yeah, it was fun. I mean, I didn't honestly expect people to just go, "Hey, yo, we're in. Like, do you want us to play to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay, cool." And people came in and they stuck through to the end. Even people who weren't playing, they stuck through to the end, like in the call. I was like, "That's fucking beautiful, absolutely beautiful." It was really, 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 really fun. Probably one of the better ones I've done in the last 3 years. It's the easiest one, even though I was absolutely exhausted. But yeah, it was good.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to the next one. I just didn't want to break the streak. You know, we started it, and I was like, why start these things if we're not going to continue them, kind of thing. You know, there's only one day a year we have to arrange getting this shit sorted. So
yeah, it just seems to be like the last 3 years something keeps cropping up just to cause trouble.
Yep.
We had COVID, and then we had last couple years we had shit's happened.
Yep.
So it's like ugh.
It's always goddamn something.
Because we were all planned up to do a 12-hour live stream. I like sort of got to something and say unfortunately life got in the way.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's it. So. That's it. And I tried to explain that to folks. Like I said, you know, because we had people come into the chat and they're like, "Hey guys," I was like, "No, guys." I said, you know, that would have been guys, but life has happened, so I'm taking the groove this time. You know, I sat and chatted with a few people. It's just weird that every single time we plan to do something like big wise, event wise, just some shit just always happens, always at the exact time we're planning on doing something.
Yeah. What we do is we need to find out when Zaber's finished, if Zaber's going to come over again next year.
Yeah.
We need to find out when he's planning to do that, and then we actually need to organise it now, as it were.
Well in advance.
Well in advance. We can get into the diaries, and barring something disastrous happening, we know where we are. So awesome.
So what have you been up to? Man?
Well, one game I've sort of started, but I've only just scratched the surface of, and one game I have played through to completion. I'll talk about the one I played through completion first. I'll briefly mention the other one.
Okay.
So I played through a game, and it's got nothing to do with the poem. A game called Paradise Lost.
All right.
It's a walking simulator game.
Right.
It's set in it's an alternative history game set in the 1960s, and it's basically World War II, the Nazis won type alternative history. One of my favourite alternative histories.
Yeah.
Not quite clear how they won it. Well, we know they developed atomic weapons. America stayed out of it. And basically they end up winning the war effectively. Well, they got to the stage where they didn't win. They were basically dominating. Got to the stage where they were getting close to winning. They were just basically them versus the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And they decided that if the Soviet invaded their country, what they decided to do was they built a load of underground bunkers to put all their population into. And they're all selected members of the population into, i.e. the Aryan race people.
Yeah, the elites.
The elites. And they then said, well, if we get invaded by Russia, we'll basically nuke everybody. We'll stick down here for like 15 years until it's all like blows over, and then at that point we'll like bred and train the next generation of Ubers. Is it Ubersmec they used to call them?
Yeah.
And we'll send them all out and we'll retake and we'll win. So you're playing a 12-year-old boy who has found this bunker which is now abandoned. There's nuclear winter going on, so Nuke Stage 4, and you are exploring this bunker and you're looking for basically your father, because your mother, the first part of the game, there's like little flashbacks to you and your mother, and it's basically your mother used to live in this place because she's a photo of her and your father with the logo of one of the floor levels on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going there because your mother then unfortunately dies, and you're basically going there to find your father just because you're trying, you've got no one else to look for. how it's not explained in any way, shape, or form because your mother doesn't want. His mother doesn't want to talk. Doesn't talk about the bunker. She keeps quiet about it. It's never explained how he found the bunker, but he does. He finds the bunker, and you basically explore. The whole game is exploring this underground bunker, and sort of what crazy scientific experiments the Nazis got up to down there. And finding out all a bit of what happened because it turns out that the Nazis were there, but things go wrong for them. And other groups end up invading them and taking over, and it becomes like a little civil war happens down there. It's very Bioshocky in terms of, and it's definitely got a Bioshock vibe, you know, an abandoned as you finding a city after the end, and like civilization's collapsed, and it's very much like that. The general premise I found quite interesting. I mean, before I go on to the sort of storyline bit, because that's where I've got some problems with it. Interface-wise and movement-wise, I personally wasn't too happy with it. So your movement speed is horrendously slow. It's a slow walk. It's more of a shuffle, really. And sprinting is basically not even like a normal walk still. It's just slow. So it's just slow to walk around it. It's like, this is some more way to make your game last longer. Just make it slow to walk around. I don't like the way the interface also was very temperamental for actually, because basically how it looks is you only have like most Wolves, you basically your only interaction is the left mouse button, and there will be little like circles appear on the screen as you get near to them. They'll fill in to let you know you can interact.
Right.
Some of those are really fiddly to actually get to the right position, particularly for stuff on the ground, because you can't bend down. There's no crouch button. So if it's on the ground, you have to get in just the right place. So you have to be almost standing on top of it, but not quite, to enable it. So it's like, you guys, just make the hitbox a bit more generous.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it so it's really fiddly to move stuff. When you want to interact with controls and stuff, what you do is you'll click on them first, and then you get a little circle appears on the screen, and there's like little quadrants, like at the far edge. Like, so imagine counter quarters, and then imagine like sort of like the edge filled in. You'll get one of these forward, and then you have to basically click the mouse again and drag the mouse into the right quadrant, and that's the way of interacting. So if you want to pull a handle down, you'll click and drag down, but you can't like left click and hold it and then it'll work. No, you have to unclick and click it again to actually make it register.
Oh.
So the interface is pretty. Yeah, the interface is pretty poor. If I'm honest, it's pretty poor. I found it's. There was quite a few times I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, I know what I want to pick up. Why do I have to keep shuffling around to pick this bloody shit up?
I get you.
So, but look, that's not much. That's all the interface really is to it. My bigger issue there is I can tell they're trying to do a storyline, and they created this place, and it's basically set in this old salt mine. So it's a huge open area, and it's basically set to several areas, and there's like, you know, sort of like office levels. You know, there's like they've built like a little like village down there. There's got like a fake beach down there, because this is where the elites are living. So they're living here. They want some degree of luxury down there, and they've built and she explored these places, which is kind of cool. The environment's quite cool to explore. The issue is that the story doesn't really explore it. And a walking simulator is about the story, really. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really. I don't feel that it really explored the areas very well, and leaves lots of stuff hanging in the air. Lots of stuff is never ever explained. It's hinted heavily what happened to the bunker between the Nazis and this when they got attacked, but it's never explained how they got in, how they were found. What happens to the sort of populations is sort of in a very throwaway line, because there's military population and civilian population there. What happens to the other civilians? It's like literally like one line. It's just a throwaway line, explains what happened to them. That's it. And it's like, that's something to explain everything. There are people. There's like groups of people you find later on. You don't find them. You find their sort of like empty sort of villages and stuff later on. And it's just said, oh yeah, they head off on a journey. Well, where the fuck did they go? There's nothing to indicate. It's just another open-ended question of where the fuck did they go. And those it's silly little things like you find no bodies anywhere. I know it's a silly thing to complain about, but this sort of civilization collapsed. Where is everybody? there's no. It's like someone's.
Yeah,
it's
they
like,
most have like gone around and they've cleaned up after themselves and then fucked off.
Yeah, there's like it's not even like there's not even bones. The only bones you find are in the meat, in the processing area, the food processing area, where you find some like cow bones.
So they've cleaned everywhere else up, but just not the.
Yeah, not the meat. Yeah. It's just like, well, there is no sort of it really doesn't make use of its trying to tell any sort of story premise. The only source there's little hints of like. Early on, there's more hints of like other little stories going on. Like you'll find letters and stuff between people and so forth, and there'll be like little like environmental storytelling going on. That all dries up towards the end, and sort of midway through, you don't really see that very much anymore. So you don't get a sense of this actually being a place, which like Bioshock did really well. And you sort of met characters and so forth through audio logs and so forth. Where you met sort of as you saw like you almost found their story out. Not every sort, it wasn't spelled word for word, but you could piece together what happened to them as you worked your way through, which you can't really do to this because most of the characters you only sort of like you'll find one letter written and that's the last you'll ever hear about them.
Sure.
There's like a couple of main characters in there, but even like the main wait until the end where all goes to hell, there's a few people left. It doesn't really. There's like you have an option of what you do to some of these people. There's sometimes options where it's weird. Because you're basically, as throughout the game, you're interact with this like computer system called Eve, and you can find these memory modules which record and they're like basically like the last like few minutes before the system failed. It's like a black box recording of what happened, and it plays back in like real time what happened. But at points, questions get asked or options get given to you, and you can interact with them. So you can say, do you wish to like attack this area or this area? And you can select which one to attack. It's like, what? Hang on a second. This is a recording. How is this working? It doesn't in the grand scheme it makes no difference what you select, but it does react like if you are.
Mm.
And that feels very strange way to do it because it feels like, well, I'm not interacting, but I am interacting. The central sort of like plot line is they also have very bad how they gave away like the sort of main plot line of the sort of story is given away within the first sort of few minutes. You come across like a document that explains like explains like one of their research projects. It's meant to be vague, but obviously it's got too much sort of specific information. They go, oh, I see what they've done here, what they're doing here. Then a bit later, you encounter a character on this or speaker on the phone. I saw like there's like a speaker sort of microphone system. You encounter a character, you go, oh, I know exactly how she's involved with that. That's obvious. I know exactly where you are and who you are and how you're involved in this. Boom. And of course, they sort of like reveal it later on. It's like, well,
already figured it out.
Yeah, figured it out, mate. It's a 4-hour game, mate. I figured it out 15 minutes in. You know, I mean, there were some twists that I didn't see coming. In fairness to it, but it's not. So as you always have this character. So initially, you'll just buy your little boy by himself. Eventually, you find a it's like speaker / microphone system, intercom type system, where you can speak to somebody. They'll talk with you. You can talk to them, have a chat with them, and they can talk to you through the speakers. But you can only talk to them through a microphone. So you have to find an intercom to talk back to them.
Right.
But then there's this one bit later. There's one bit in the game where your character's in peril, and he has to shout like, "Stop this machine! Stop it now!" And they do. And then he goes. And then a little bit later, he goes, how can you hear me without a microphone? They just go, I don't know. And that's it. That is it. The whole conversation explains nothing. Because it's established you have to use an intercom to speak to this person. But all of a sudden, there's one bit you don't. And when they hang a lampshade but ask the question, how can you do it? And just go, I don't know. But it's never addressed again. It's never brought up again. And it's like, you had to do it feels like, well, we had to have it for that bit, and someone go, oh shit, that doesn't make sense. We'll just put that line in there to explain it. It feels a bit like that going on. It's all a bit of Deus Ex Machina going on. The story the story could do with a lot more fleshing out. The world could do with a lot more fleshing out. Because it looks like a really interesting place. I could see it being perhaps not so much perhaps if it's a bit more going on than just like walking around. I could see it being a 10-hour game, in all honesty. I could see it doing it, but it just needs a lot more fleshing out in it. And it's a shame because the actual I said the environment I found very interesting. I found because it gets very dark quite towards the end, and it gets a real sort of very dark, and it's quite. And it's a depressing game anyway because your character he's a 12-year-old boy without a mother living in a nuclear winter. Has a bleak start to start with, and this game gets even bleaker towards the end. So it has that sort of like I like the sort of atmosphere. I like the general idea of it. It feels very like wasted potential.
I get you.
Yeah, it feels very wasted. And it's a shame because it is it has got some stuff going for it. They missed the boat. They just missed it. It's a real shame. So other than that, I actually did enjoy it. I mean, it took me about 4 hours to get through. Looks on how long it's been. That seems to be about the average. The highest average seems to be about 4.5.
Right.
So if you go, I mean, I thought I explored everywhere. Because you do. What's the whole point of walking simulators? To explore and find the areas. And I don't think I missed much story, but there's so much story left unmentioned.
Or it feels unmentioned, or is there an actual place that will tally up what you have and haven't seen?
Not that I could find. I've been looking on wikis and stuff, and all the information that people sort of put in the wikis and stuff seems to be what I come across anyway.
Okay.
Because stuff is highlighted pretty obviously. When you walk to an area, it's highlighted with also fairly obviously, so you can't really miss it very easily. I'm sure I missed some bits of it because you always do when you play these sort of games. But yeah, it's a real shame. It's a real shame. It had great meanings, but it just lost it towards the end.
How much does it cost?
I think it's £14.
Would you say it's worth 14?
I would say it's a sale game.
Sale game, okay.
Yeah, I said it's a sale game. If you like walking simulators, you'll get something out of it, but it's very much a low tier. In the nicest possible way, it's a low tier walking simulator. And the ending of it, to me, the ending was a no-brainer. But I know people would have picked some of the options you get given. To me, it appears no-brainer at all. But we'll see. I'm sure some people disagree with the choices I made, but I think most people would have done.
Sure.
So cool. But yeah, other than that, the other game I've been playing, which I've literally just scratched the surface of, I'm playing a VR game. And it's called Into the Radius.
Funny! I was looking at that today.
Were you?
I was looking to pick it up. I was like, this is something that Ram might play.
Ram has played.
Oh,
Into the Radius.
Your shield's coming down. They want to protect you from the radiation of the light. Oh, there you go.
Oh dear. Well, this is all getting a nice delayed reaction to that. Oh yeah, I'll just sit up on my stream. It's Into the Radius. It's basically, hey guys, we want to make S.T.A.L.K.E.R VR, but we don't own the license. Let's make our own game, which basically is S.T.A.L.K.E.R VR.
Is that the one that allows you to play acoustic guitar? I think they might have put that in recently. Maybe. That might have been where I'd only just
scratched it. Yeah, I think you can actually, yeah. I think you've only just scratched the surface of the game.
Sure.
But it's set now, so you know S.T.A.L.K.E.R, it's set in a full part of the USSR. That an event has happened that's created this weird zone which has strange anomalies in it. It was strange, you can go into these anomalies and pick up artifacts that can help you out or use them or sell them and so forth. Into the Radius is set in a full part of the USSR where a strange event has happened near a town, and the whole town's been covered in a strange event. And within that town, you can strange monsters and encounter anomalies, and you can pick up artifacts from said anomalies as well. It's a game.
I wonder where they get their influences from.
I don't know, but it's a few sort of like twists the story. So, for example, the story is like where this has happened. The only people who can go into it's called the Radius. The only people, because it is a radius that controls this whole area. The only people who go into it were people who were there when it happened.
Yeah.
So all the people who lived in the town are the only people who go into the area to explore. Everybody else who goes in there basically dies.
Yeah, I've heard of a couple of series that are like that.
Yeah, and so you are one of these people, and there are strange creatures in there which are basically like sort of like it's not clear if they're like sort of like former residents. There's like this one's called fragments that look like. How would you describe them? They look like sort of like imagine a person, but they're like sort of shadows. But they're made out of like bits of glass, like in a person's shape.
All right.
A stained glass. Yeah, is it? I can't remember which film it is. It's a film that's just got like a character made out of stained glass, and one of the early CGI characters. And it's a bit like that. I can't remember which film it was. I think was it Ghostbusters? No, it wasn't Ghostbusters. One of the early films. So you are basically going to this area, and your job is to pick up. There are like the artifacts, but there's also like other artifacts they want you to pick up, like which are like beings that been given property. So like one of the early ones, I think you got to pick up like a photo, I think it's a roll of film you've got to pick up. That basically been sort of transmitted by the zone. You've got to go in because only you can go in because you're someone who lives there. You still go no support. But what makes it interesting is it's pushing towards all the realistic side. So and it's proper full on like okay, your character, you have basically how you have hotspots on your characters normally where you can attach things.
Yeah.
Your character has basically 2 chest hotspots. He's got a hotspot on each arm. He's got a utility belt that's got 3 spaces to put magazines in, and like a little pouch, which you can like put like multiple things in. And they have a backpack as well, which you can put stuff in. Basically, if you can fit it in there, you can fit it in there. It'll fit. There's like a little like it's got like a little cube shaped like sort of bounding box around it that you can see. And if you put something in that cube shape, it goes in the backpack. It there has got weights on it as well, so that you can add weight to it. So that means actually when you go in, that sounds like quite a lot of spaces. But actually, fact, you find yourself going in, it's like you've got a shoulder mount as well. You can put a long gun. So when I was last playing, my character had a chest-mounted torch we could switch on and leave on his chest. He had a anomaly detector on his other chest slot. He had a little set of little bag of decoys that you can throw ahead of you to find the anomalies.
Right.
On one arm, knife on the other arm. He then has a pistol. You've got a side holster as well for your pistol. 3 magazines to the pistol, and then the magazine in the pistol. And he's got his little pouch. And in fact, once you get that, you ain't got much space left really, because those like stuff that you've got quick to hand. Everything else you have to put in your backpack. It's pushed. I don't think it pushes towards the ultra realistic. So magazines are. You don't just actually you carry magazines. So if you drop one, that's gone.
Yeah.
Unless you can find it again. And magazines also. Each magazine keeps track of bullets individually, so you have to sort of like switch out, make sure.
Yeah, sure. If you have a mag that holds 7, for example, you fire 5 and then switch out, you lose an extra 2.
No, it'll have the 2 still in.
No, I mean you've if you throw that mag, you've lost 2. It doesn't just go, oh yeah, well you didn't use 2, so we're going to keep that in your.
Yeah, if you take the magazine, so one of the neat feature has got is if you tap the button, the unload magazine button in your controller, it just unloads the magazine, drops on the ground. If you hold it, only half drops out, so you can pull it out.
Pull it out and rebag it.
Yeah, so you can do it, which is you need to do, because otherwise you'll occasionally find them in the wild, as it were, but you won't find many in the wild.
Yeah.
So you have to be fairly careful with stuff, because if you drop something, you're pretty fucked. So like, I dropped my knife, and I done it because I was carrying it with me, because it got a bit dark. I've got to go hide somewhere, because it's getting a bit dark in the zone. I dropped my knife. I couldn't find it again because it's dark. Has got one of the anti-frustration it has got is that you can, if you're nearby an object, if your hand's empty, if you hold trigger down, you can aim and pick up stuff nearby. That's also to enable playing it sitting down. You can then sort of still get stuff nearby you if you need to. And it has got and also you can also, for example, it's got a crouch functionality and so forth, so you can do sit down play. But it also means you do stuff. You can also carry around your sort of box of ammunition. So you get a box of ammunition, you hold the magazine next to it. It'll gradually fill the magazine up, and the back box will tell you how much ammunition is left in it. So you do find yourself in situations where you'll go to be able to take a breather, just put your gun down the table, reorganize your magazines, move bullets between them and so forth, reorganize them. So you're re-equipped. So you have to take a little breather every so often to sort yourself out,
yeah, sure,
and get ready to come again. So gunfights, because you don't carry a lot of ammunition, gunfights are quite tense, because you have to be fairly careful what you're doing and pay attention to what you're doing and actually think about it. You can't just rush around and run in, and you are quite vulnerable. So you have the first time I encountered an enemy that had a gun was fucking terrifying. because you take a lot of that. All of a sudden, walking around, I've just encountered enemies. So the first enemy I encountered was what they call these fragments, who are like these sort of like people who look like vaguely sort of like shadowy people type things I described earlier. There's this one which, what do they call it? Some people call it, I think it's supposed to call a spy, which is like this. And all their characters are like just black silhouettes. It's like this black blob with loads of tentacles that sort of flies around, and it just charges at you. And I managed to just defeat that, and that was sort of quite. But I like how that one, because the fragments move really slowly, like zombies. They sort of shamble towards you. This thing moves bloody quick. So I fought one of those off. I'm walking, I need to get to find this film, and there's a base nearby, I think, and it's getting dark, and it gets proper dark. And again, if you have your light on, the enemies can see a light easier, so you don't really want to use your light if you don't have to. I'm thinking, shit, I need to get into cover. I was looking towards the base. I saw I see something shooting at me. I think, fuck. So I leg it into the base, leg upstairs, and I literally throw myself into the corner of the room and sit there with my gun in one hand, pointed, aiming at the window, waiting for whatever it is to appear.
Right.
And it doesn't help that I can hear it going around going, where are you? Where are you? I'm going to find you. And all this sort of stuff. It's quite creepy. And it's like, oh, shit. And I was like, well, what do? I either try... Because bear in mind, they're black. So fighting in the dark isn't really helpful.
No.
So I just basically sit there quietly waiting for daylight. Just so... Because you can't... Because, again, I can tell I can't rebalance my magazines. I can't do anything because I can't see any darn thing.
No.
I could put my light on, but again, it might know who I am. Eventually, I managed to sort of sit and I managed to sort of sneak around and get the drop on it.
Quick question. You're on the Rift S.
Yes.
Right? That's LCD, isn't it? Not OLED.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was going to say, I imagine that would be fantastic on one of the older OLED headsets.
Yeah.
Like where black is actually black.
Yeah. No, it's like switched off black. So, yeah, it is very. It's got the atmosphere of S.T.A.L.K.E.R. It's very atmospheric, and also it's very design principles. It's a lot crazier environment. So like just walking around, you'll just come across like there'll just be a truck sort of like floating in midair, here and everywhere. It's a lot more. The environment's a bit more crazier.
Yeah.
But yeah, just sort of. As soon as I sort of like got out, as soon as I got out, first time I sort of went into the rages. It's like I thrilled to it, and within like a few minutes being, I wanted to get back to base into the safety because it's like this is quite concerning.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's not something that you've ever actually experienced in real life before. So,
yeah.
It's something you wouldn't imagine in real life before. Like that, say for example, the floating cars and stuff. Hang on, physics is broken. What the fuck's going to come at me? Whereas when you play like a regular first-person shooter in VR, you're like, well, it's just going to be a guy come running at me. So I know if I scan the environment, I know, the most likely places they're going to come from. In something that has a bit more of a supernatural vibe to it, you're a bit like, oh shit.
Yeah.
What have I got to defend against?
And because you feel so vulnerable, just coming in combat makes you feel so vulnerable, and injuries and you can take a lot of damage very quickly if you're not careful. So you're paranoid. You're bloody careful. I mean, I went in sort of fairly well equipped. I went in. I also had a shotgun on my back, but and the shotgun has a little space to put cartridges on the side, so you can. So basically, I've got 7 cartridges, 2 in the gun, 5 on the side, and I've got magazines. So, in a combat, when I was like having a shooting match with the shotgun, I was like, I'm running out of cartridges. I've even got to try and find some cover somewhere. I get my backpack out to start moving cartridges around. Well, I'm fucked. It is very tense. So I've only really scratched the surface of it, but I've enjoyed it so much. But it is at the moment. I was like, I can only play it for like sort of an hour and a half, and it's just like the stress is too much. Although I imagine as I play a bit more and I get more comfortable with it, I'll do longer sessions. I would imagine.
Sure.
But no, it's really neat, and oh yes. Every so often, the zone has the place has a moment where like it will. The zone in the S.T.A.L.K.E.R used to have what they call blowouts. They're in Into the Reach as well, and they'll randomly, if you get caught in a blowout, they'll just in S.T.A.L.K.E.R they kill you unless you're on cover. And into the reach, into the radius. Sorry, you'll just get teleported around a part of the map.
Right.
So that's a bit. Although from what I've seen, it looks like the map is not like one big map. It's like it spins like this, like levels within the map you go to. So it's like little blocked off areas. Of what I've seen so far, but yeah, I've only just sort of scratched the surface of the game. But I'm liking what I see so far. I'm enjoying what I've seen so far.
I don't remember if that has a multiplayer mode in it.
It hasn't. No, I did have a look for that because I thought that would be awesome in multiplayer.
So I think I first heard of that one, as I say, they added in an acoustic guitar that you could actually play chords on, and some people were just fucking blown away by that.
Yeah, I believe you can.
And it's got like, hasn't it got like some the video I saw, some chap was like the one way to really build the atmosphere is when you're kind of hunkered down and you want to listen to like some old like 1950s like Russian whatever music, and it really fits the groove of where you are. And then, you know, throw in the acoustic that you can just sit there and strum and all that. They were like, this is a fantastic VR experience.
Yeah.
You know, very, very immersive. And that's one thing I really struggle with in VR. As weird as that sounds, I do not find many VR games immersive at all. And I've said it on this podcast a million times that, frankly, I think VR gaming is pretty shit. And, you know, the VR as it stands is currently like in the Atari age.
Yes,
Atari or coming up to Super Nintendo. We haven't quite figured out what sticks yet, so it's a lot of kind of random ass proof of concept throwaway stuff. Anyone that at this point, anyone that tries to sell a VR headset or keeps talking about VR headsets online, I just say just ignore them. They're just, if they're running like new headsets, then they are just likely influencers trying to sell you on a new piece of tech. Yeah. I guarantee that no one is spending that much time in VR playing games, but if they are in VR a lot, I promise you they're in VR chat. And if they're in VR chat, they don't need like Valve indexes or any of the newer super high res headsets. They're not using them. Or maybe sim pilots and stuff, but other than that, like you've not got it.
I think VR, the issue of VR is a lot more sensitive to having your controls really well tuned.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly janky controls in another game, the sort of like threshold from use playable to it's just jank, I can't play it, is actually quite low. It's actually quite high. You can make a game playable fairly easily, and people can get used to it. In VR, particularly if you've got like if you have to grab stuff with belts and so forth. It's really, you have to do a lot of fine tuning to get it just right so it feels smooth and usable and so forth. So that when you put your arm down to your waist to pick your gun up, you will pick your gun up and you won't accidentally miss it.
Yeah.
That I think is sort of like the hard part of VR. And I don't think that will just comes down to polish, and I don't think that'll ever really go away because every time you build, unless you use a pre-made setup, every time you build a game from the backup, you're going to face the same challenges.
Yeah.
So that's why I think what it's, and you're right, the other issue is that there's very few games out there that make people want to buy it, which I would say are VR sellers.
Sure.
There are very few out there.
Well,
Half-Life Alyx is probably the one that comes to mind straight away.
Agreed.
But after that, I mean, actually, if you're into this sort of like Stalker-esque game, I could imagine buying a VR headset to play this one actually, because it is fairly well refined.
Yeah,
it's very refined. You have got issues because obviously you've got your chest, and you've got so many things on your chest. It's fair. You can easily miss things.
Yeah,
that's a bit of a lack of tactile feedback.
Yeah, that is another thing I struggle with in VR. That there's no actual weight in VR. No. So I don't actually know when I've got hold of something. So sometimes I completely miss what I'm trying to grab, or I'm trying to interact with the environment and nothing feels real. You just feel this weird rubber bandy kind of animation, like, oh, hey, my hand is moving freely, but in VR all of a sudden there's like some virtual weight there. It doesn't connect to the brain. No.
And the only way you'd ever get around that, the only way you could redo is if you had some sort of rig that actually like fitted onto your your entire arm almost.
Yeah, imagine like a bodysuit, like a wetsuit, but with like I don't know, like
little
polys
servos
and shit.
stuff in it. Yeah, to like basically put resistance.
Yeah.
So if you lifted up something heavy, it just basically like put a load of. You can use a little mini hydraulics. Just put a load of resistance up. So if something heavy, you put something heavy up, it felt heavy.
Yeah.
That is again, that is a fundamental design of VR you can't get away from at the moment.
It's interesting because I know a lot of people who are like, I experience phantom touch and all this kind of stuff, and it's like that's fine and well, but a lot of these new experiences that people are saying they're having in VR, as you said, there aren't that many VR sellers out there, right? You got like Half-Life Alyx, Boneworks, Beat Saber, VR Chat, but a lot of these games came out in like the first couple of years of VR.
That was my own point. You go on if you load up like the Oculus thing now or Meta now, it's still advertised like budget cuts on the front page. So that was on the very first game, and Budget Cuts is a really good game. I like Budget Cuts. I played that last year. I really like Budget Cuts. It's actually one of the very, I would say, early, well-designed VR games. Mm-hmm. It still does look a bit old now because they went. The early design of VR games, people guessed how it was going to go, and it's actually sort of drifted away from that. So I think early on, everybody thought VR was going to be teleport movement.
Ugh.
But that's how people thought, because they thought most people struggled with motion sickness, which I put down to early headsets as well. And I did struggle with motion sickness when I first played VR. I struggled with motion sickness, but I managed to sort of get over that. So everybody thought teleport movement was the way to go. So Budget Cuts, you can only move via teleport because that's what they thought was going to go.
Yeah.
And actually, as time has gone on, people can get used to it. And so people are more, and the idea now of actually, the idea of using teleport to move, it actually feels really strange. It actually feels really awkward and really clunky, that is VR. I say VR is still actually, relatively speaking, very young.
Yes. And
it hasn't had 20 to 30 years of development on it.
Well, that's why I say that at the moment we're in the Atari age. So a lot of games that we play in VR just feel like super low budget, flat screen games. Like, what's the game where you fight North Korea? Like they invade America.
Oh, Homefront.
Yeah, right. It's the original Homefront, not the remake Homefront, but the original one. A lot of VR games feel janky like that, like a budget first-person shooter. Not great. You can struggle through it and have fun, but it's not great. It doesn't have the polish of, say, the next one, or like a COD game or whatever. It's like playing Medal of Honor versus Modern Warfare 2 or something like that. There's huge gaps. There's lots of jank, and there's lots of things that break immersion. I mean, I've just gone onto the Steam popular list for VR, and you've got VR Chat, Beat Saber, Blade and Sorcery, Gorilla Tag, Pavlov, and Half-Life Alyx. Right? Well, Pavlov is fucking 2017. Gorilla Tag was 2021, but it's just a goof game. Blade and Sorcery is 2018. Beat Saber's 2019, and VR Chat's 20. Like, these games are fucking ancient. Anyone that tells you that you need to go out and buy a fucking an HP Reverb G2 or one of the I can't even remember what the fuck they're called, but there's like an ultra wide FOV headset that's like a fucking £900. Just don't. Any of these fucking VR influencers that are constantly telling you about new headsets need to understand, like, they're not playing VR. They're not in VR. They're probably, if they are, they're sat in VR Chat.
So you're not going to get the Meta Pro then, Skazz?
Fuck no. I mean, I'll tell you one thing, right? Meta, the Pro, the new headset, the black one with all that. One, I don't know if you can charge it externally without the dock, so that's a complete no for me. But the bit that's really good, face tracking. It's got built-in face tracking. And then I think the only other one that had anything close to that was with eye tracking and face tracking would have been one of the it might have been the Vive Pro 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Where you actually had to put on modules on the front of it to get face tracking and that to work. But there's some cool tech in it, but fuck me, $1,500. There's no software for it. There isn't any. But you always see, like, every week, there's a VR influencer on YouTube or wherever going, here's a new headset. Here's a new headset. But where's the software that goes with this headset? What are you doing outside of reviewing software and then putting it in the bin straight away? What are you doing in VR that fucking means you have to keep talking about these headsets?
Yeah, I mean,
they're doing it for views.
Yeah. I mean, in defence of the Pro, we actually look what they're after. They're aiming it towards like commercial entities, and I think that actually that if you're an architect, being able to give your clients a VR walkthrough is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, of course.
If in the industry I'm sort of relating, where people do kitchen design, if you could say something, let's design your kitchen, let's measure up. Here you go, put this VR headset on, you can actually walk around your new kitchen. Yeah. There you go. That's that. I think again, VR is stuck at the moment in a chicken and egg scenario.
There is no software yet,
but no one's been software for because they don't feel there's big enough market.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
and the other trouble is let's look at the other sort of the old. It's like a bit like the old. Let's look at the old days. We had like not so much nowadays because it's all universal, but it's like 10, 15 years ago, console and PC. If you pull something from a console to PC, the interface is the same. It's just the controls are different, really, and you have to reprogram for the. And at that point, it's just a programming issue, which slows you down. Nowadays, it's not such an issue because most things can compile out to whatever format you need, and most things have got built-in support for all the sort of things you need. VR is a completely different interface.
Oh yes.
To make a non-VR version of a game. To do best of both worlds is basically impossible. You have something that feels janky in VR, but great great on PC, or vice versa, or not good in both. Mm-hmm. I mean, we played Phasmophobia the other week, which has got a PC version, and the VR version of that feels very janky.
I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that game was. I went on record later on that night, and I was like, holy shit, we were expecting that game to be a lot better in VR because a lot of the jank that we felt when we were playing it in PC mode, we felt would have been remedied by having a VR headset on. But we got the VR headsets on and it was worse. Or at least I found it was I think it was. I don't think it worked. I don't think it was really worked well for sitting mode. No,
I had so much trouble because I was doing stand-up mode. I didn't feel so much trouble what you and Zabe were having, but I think it just simply wasn't really well designed for sitting mode.
I couldn't handle the fact that I couldn't pick anything up. Like, just being able to place cameras and things was so horrible, and yet that was the thing that I thought that would be fixed in VR. I could just literally grab the camera by the top, place it down on the table, twist it around a bit, and then fucking leg it. Nope,
that's what I'm saying is a sitting first standing issue, because I had not a lot of trouble doing that. But it shouldn't have had any issue because it's based on the way that my hands operate, not on the way that my legs operate. Yeah.
And I could not hold some of those items to save my fucking life. Yeah. It wasn't a case of taking them off my belt. It was when they were in my hand. I just couldn't manipulate them to get them to where I wanted them to be. Yeah.
And that I think the only game that I think has done a good VR and PC mode independent of each other is Demio.
Yes.
Both work. Both work. And they both and the fact that you can crossbow as well was really good.
Yeah,
both work well. And actually, I think that's also playing to VR's strength, which is like, well, most people play VR sat down because most people haven't got space to do stand up.
Nope.
So let's make a game which is basically you sitting around a table. Yeah, and they've played to the strengths of it. So there are. I do think VR's gonna. I think VR for a long time. VR is going to be very much there'll be VR games and there'll be non-VR games, and there won't be a lot of crossover, and there'll be very few that cross over that are good at both.
No, we should probably mention actually that there are a lot of flat screen games that are now getting modded to have VR modes. Like Half-Life 2, I think, is one that's had a VR mod.
That had a VR mod quite a while ago, actually.
Sure. Well, a lot of people are only really now playing with it, but
but I don't know how. I'm interested to know how janky those mods feel.
Sure.
My suspicion is probably very janky.
Sure.
Because you're fundamentally the way the way you interact with a game engine in VR, and the way just like how a character is set up in VR. Having now done I've been dabbling in building a game in VR. I've been dabbling with it, and it's so you have to rewire your brain how things work, how that character is set up, how things interact with that character or set up. I imagine those be fairly jank because you're basically trying to put a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah.
Or square peg in a round hole. More accurate. But I'm sure some of them probably done a decent job, but I suspect they're all going to be fairly jank.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
I've
That's based on actually having played any of them. I'm just guessing.
I've just gotten really angry with VR influencers in recent history. It's like, stop selling or telling people, hey, new headsets. It's like having a higher res headset isn't going to make the VR game or the VR environment any better. It's going to make it higher res, which is going to make you need a more powerful PC. But if the game's if manipulating the environment is jank as fuck, it's going to be jank as fuck in a Quest, a CV1, an Index. You know, they're all going to be shit. Where's the software? Most of the people I know that spend a lot of time in VR, they're not playing games. And I've said this myself. The thing that keeps bringing me back to VR is social VR, VR chat. VR chat, chill out VR, Rec Room. It's not the games, because the games are shit. They're subpar. You don't need a £2,000 headset for VR chat.
No.
You know, and half of the games out there. I mean, for example, Boneworks. Everyone's like, that's a great game. It's a fun game, but you said it, Ram. If there's a little bit of jank in the way that you interact with the environment, it's done. And there are some areas in Boneworks, to me, it's unplayable. It feels like it's a slog. It becomes a chore. As soon as you see something where you have to jump and climb, if you haven't mastered the climbing mechanic, that's going to feel not great. It doesn't feel intuitive.
I think the best VR games... the best VR games I've played... And I do believe there are good VR games out there. Unfortunately, the other issue VR had was VR was very much when it first came out, there weren't very many mainstream publishers doing VR.
But even the ones that have, like EA did. Was it EA that did Medal of Honor?
I don't know.
I really wanted whoever it was that owns Medal of Honor.
It would be EA. Yeah.
I really wanted to play that. But I must have seen video of the Quest version recently, and I was like, Jesus Christ, the AI looks as stupid as an old mobile game. You remember back in the day with mobile games, you had to use the old touchscreen controls, and you could run into a room full of enemies and just stand there and they'd be firing and missing like stormtroopers.
Yeah.
It looked like that, and I was like, Christ, what is this?
Oh, I'd say, but I think initially it was hit by the wave of a lot of little developers having a go. Having said that, the games like I Expect You to Die works really well. That's a VR game. Works really well. Enjoyed that. But again, that was designed as a sit-down VR from the ground up. You're going to be the whole game sat in one place for each level. You don't move about. So they worked from the ground up. So I think trouble is a lot of people have approached VR to. Let's make a game we want, but let's try and use a mindset of non-VR games in our VR world. That's right. You've got to rewire your brain and go, what works in VR, what doesn't. We need to avoid the things that don't work.
Yeah,
I think
don't take a flat screen experience and try and shove it into VR. You're going to have to really tailor it and tweak it.
No. Oh, I've got to say one nifty thing in the Radius what I've not seen before.
Okay.
In all the games I played. Really feature certain tools in your hand. If you push a button, you will switch your grip on them. So, for example, if you have a torch, you normally hold a torch like that. You switch, you can flip it so it's pointing downwards, so you can lean over the tree and look down without having to bend your hands.
Oh, sure. So you can have it so that your fingers are below the grip or over grip.
You know how most people hold a torch? They hold it. Yeah, they have a blow grip. They have how the police hold the torch. They have it over their shoulders. So they can aim down and stuff.
Yeah. So you've got more freedom to move it about. Yeah.
You can flip the grip as mode. Just flip the grip, so you can if you want where there's a ledge, you want to look down. You flip the grip, and you can look down easily.
Yeah.
That's an example of a neat little. Someone's thought about it and gone, "This is really awkward." I know. Let's make it so you can flip the grip.
Yep.
That's an example of a neat little change that someone's thought about it a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah. Like I said, I think
I want to throw out there. Sorry. I like VR.
Yeah.
I love VR. Like, I could sit there for hours with a VR headset on. The day you first let me try that CV1 RAM, I was fucking sold in a heartbeat. And I invested heavily into VR from that point on.
Yeah, well, you've got more VR headsets than me.
I've got 8.
Yeah.
So, this is what I'm saying. Like, I like VR a lot, but I'm also very sensitive to bullshit. And I see all of these influencers going, this experience is great. This experience is the best. This is worth buying a VR headset for. And I'm like, really? You're telling people to go out and buy a reasonably expensive PC, say a £700 PC, £800 PC, £1,000 headset for that? Really? If you're telling people they're going to get really disappointed. They're going to buy this headset and just put it down, or gravitate towards VR chat. Straight out. And then you'll have a guy go, "Oh hey, yeah, rumor, new Quest 3, new ultra high res headset." It's like, stop telling people to do that. Stop doing that. Stop talking about it just because you need to make a YouTube video to get views. The stuff just isn't that good. You're selling VR on all of the wrong bits. You're not selling people on immersive experiences and stuff like that. You're literally just selling them on like what people would sell a TV on, resolution, stuff like that. Just stop.
Yeah.
Especially when these people aren't. They say they're hardcore into VR, but if the only thing they're playing is VR chat, just no, no.
Yeah.
But then again, I suppose I fall into that same category. Because I'll occasionally fire up a first-person shooter, or I will pull up like a bunch of mini games or whatever. But I don't like VR games that much. They're quite broken to me. I would never recommend people buy a VR headset for a lot of the games that people try and peddle. I'd say, if you're a fan of Half-Life, play Half-Life Alyx. Boneworks and Bone Lab, pretty fun. Zenith as an MMO is worth playing, but understand that it's proof of concept.
Yeah.
Don't go out and drop several £1,000s just to play those games, because they're not that good. They're like really mediocre games if you were talking about flat screen.
Yeah.
But I think we should probably actually arrange more VR-y nights, Ram, because now that Zaber's got his PC,
yes,
he's actually capable of driving his VR headset.
Well, he did kindly gift that VR game, or he gave me a VR game, a pirate VR game recently. And I see you've got it as well.
Yeah, I was the one that told him about it.
Right,
Have you seen this like VR style Sea of Thieves game? The online is in beta phase at the moment. So it's not...
I was reading that. It's a bit ropey from what I understand.
There is also actually, Valheim?
Yeah.
There seems to be a new game out like Valheim. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but you basically play Vikings and you're rocking around with a bow and arrow.
You just said it's a game like Valheim. That doesn't sell it to me.
No. It's Norse mythology.
Yeah.
Looks absolutely gorgeous. Apparently, that'll bring my PC to its knees. If you set it on highest quality, it will bring my PC to its knees. So I think that one would be an interesting one to play. I don't know how you move about the world or anything, but it's like you have to take down waves of enemies and travel. Like I said, just walking around the environment, I imagine, would be absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I want to get everyone into VR chat because we said we were going to do Devouring.
Yes, I would like to record a session Devouring.
That'd be pretty fun.
I'd like to record it for when we have our little break over Christmas, I'd like to actually have it recorded and have it edited together for both go out over Christmas.
See, but that's where we'd have to talk to Saber and arrange an actual time, because if we don't do it soon,
yeah, no, we'll have to. If Zaber's not dying anymore, we'll speak to him on. We can speak to him on Tuesday about it.
Sure. So there are some really good experiences in VR. Sometimes I just don't think they're not worth the investment. Make sure you've got a handful of things you want to try in VR first, because if not, you'll just find yourself going back to playing like Beat Saber and VR chat and shit like that.
Yeah. I would also say, if you're going to get into VR, don't go straight away for like a Valve Index. Get yourself like the Quest or something. And
get a Quest 2 or a Vive. Get a second-hand HTC Vive, the first gen, right? Here's why I recommend that headset. The Vive is interchangeable with most parts of the Index's kit. Okay, so if you buy a Vive, you get base stations, shitty control pads, but control pads nonetheless, and a somewhat decent headset.
Yeah.
The Index will track with the Vive's base stations and I think the controls. So you can upgrade each piece individually if you wish. Right? If you want to get into VR chat and full body tracking and all that kind of stuff, again, you're going to need a base station tracked headset. Go for an HTC Vive, and you can buy those for like £150.
Yeah.
And if you are just going to play some shooters, get into social VR, the resolution isn't that important. It just isn't.
I've not obviously seen a Quest screen. My Rift S, that was a massive upgrade from the Rift in resolution, because the Rift is obviously it's all first gen consumer level grade, and that is really horrible to read anything with.
Yeah.
Rift S, however, is good enough that you can read what you're doing. It's actually pretty darn, if you get it adjusted right, that's pretty clear. It's actually quite sharp.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt if I put on a Quest, I would see a difference, but actually, it's good enough.
Yeah. Quest 2, I will say, for reading and all that kind of stuff, is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The Vive, the HTC Vive, again, that was a Gen 1 headset. But the sweet spot on that is actually quite easy to get, and you can upgrade. Well, that's another thing with the Vive. You can upgrade the lenses.
Yeah.
So it's a lot sharper, and you can do that for less than $50.
Yeah.
So you've got a decent screen. I think it's OLED in the Vive. Access to full body tracking right off the bat. You can go out and buy the Knuckles if you really want to. The Index's controls. If you eventually say, I'd like a higher res headset, you can just buy the Index alone. Because that's actually one of the next things I was thinking of doing. You know, I've already got base stations. I've already got Knuckles. Well, fuck it. I can buy the headset for £450.
Yeah.
So, and I've just upgraded it piece by piece. Quest 2 is fantastic for standalone and wireless VR. The fact that you can the audience for VR is in standalone. It just is, right? So a lot of games are now being for games and experiences are now being designed with standalone in mind. But the idea that you can put a VR headset in a backpack, and go and play all these experiences or travel through all these experiences, fucking grand. I do just get an older headset. I wouldn't recommend a Rift S though, like what Ram's got. I just wouldn't. Either go no, not even CV1. I'd say Quest or Quest 2. If you're going to do standalone, only go Quest 2. If you're going to go PC VR, it doesn't matter if you go Quest 1 or Quest 2. HTC Vive, the first gen. Valve Index. And everything else, just put it in the bin. Frankly. Because the software just isn't there. It's just not there. But as I said, you can get like a CV1 for 50 to 100 quid. Vive for around £150. Don't get fooled by the influencers. Don't go and spend $1,000 off the bat.
This is why I just don't watch influencers. I just don't bother watching them. I steer clear of them and just don't. If you steer clear of influencers, you'll find your life is a lot better. You'll be
a lot happier with what you have.
Yeah.
You're not always looking at the next piece of kit going, I wish I had that. That'll be the thing that makes my experience better. I promise you, it won't. It just won't.
No.
You know, my Quest 2 is a fantastic headset. But I'd often go back to a Gen 1 Vive just so I could do full body tracking and have an OLED screen and all that. I would happily go back to the CV1, to be completely honest with you. CV1 was a great headset.
Yeah.
So the VR experience doesn't change based on resolution, other than maybe a bit of screen door.
Screen door, I will say, I'm glad I got the Rift S because and I'd say text is the big one.
Yeah, but again, that's all down to the sweet spot on your lenses too.
It is, but a slight high resolution makes that sweet spot a bit easier to find, a bit easier to set up. Because you do find when you're wearing a headset, unless if it's so tight, your skull's being cracked slightly every time you use it. They move because you move your head. They do drift a little bit.
Yeah, you fall. The sweet spot falls out.
Yeah. So you want to have that sweet spot slightly bigger, and I think the slight higher resolution gives you a slightly bigger sweet spot. So, there was a noticeable improvement from the Rift to the Rift S, a real massive improvement. So,
well, counting pixels was one of the first things I noticed in the CV1. Like, I made a comment on that straight away as soon as I was using it. Vive, it's there, but it ain't as bad.
Yeah.
Cosmos, it's there. It's not as bad, but the Cosmos, trying to get that sweet spot, HTC's like second headset, trying to get the sweet spot on that's fucking atrocious. Absolutely terrible. Like, you are almost constantly playing it with fucking Vaseline over the lenses.
Yeah.
Index apparently has a horrible sweet spot, but is very easy to adjust. That's a very comfortable headset. Yeah, I mean, just maybe go for a Gen 1, Gen 2 headset.
Yeah. And
if your PC ain't balls deep hardcore, I mean, someone who came onto my YouTube channel the other day, and I think they were trying to play VR on like a GT 710 or something like that, or a 750 Ti. And I'm like, yeah, no, you ain't playing VR on that.
No.
Like, no way. If you haven't got a stonking great PC, your best bet would be standalone VR. Quest 2 is the only standalone VR worth a fuck. But sorry, I went off on a bit of a rant there, sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. Well, that's me done anyway, to be fair.
Sure.
So I think this would be a good time for us to end, I suppose. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add in?
Nah, man, that's it. I wish I had full body tracking for my Quest 2.
So you want full body tracking, and you want some kind of resistance system, which means you basically you want an exoskeleton. It's really,
I was tempted if I had the money, I would have bought a full balls deep haptic suit for VR like last year. I fucking really wanted one, and once I got full body tracking set up like beginning of this year, I think.
Yeah.
Mate, give me that and a haptic suit, and I would just sit in VR all day, flat out.
It's the point. First, it's like the point where you actually have to like get dressed up to play a computer game. It starts getting a little bit.
Yeah, it gets a bit extreme. Yeah. It does get a bit extreme.
It's like I'm gonna play. It's like I'll play a video game. I'll rip my headset on, grab the two controllers away I go. All right, I'm just gonna get changed. Well, see you in a few minutes.
I just want to throw out there though. Immersion, you would be amazed at how much more acceptable VR is when your legs move when you move them. Like, legit, if I sit down in a chair in VR chat and like wiggle my legs in front of me, I'm like, oh, hello, this is me. Whereas if I'm playing VR chat and I don't have my full body trackers on, it feels really janky and foreign.
Yeah.
Like, my avatar just isn't me. So, honestly, like, it sounds like a bit of a faff, But it really does make a difference.
I'm sure
It
it
really
does.
makes a difference. That and being able to fly
Yes.
kick somebody. Top notch.
Anyway, so very much for watching. You can join us on our next podcast on the 3rd of December. It's nearly here. Time's coming. You best get buying your presents. So you can join us on our next podcast then. You can join us on our games night this Tuesday. You can join me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/StuffItCram.
And I will be on twitch.tv/Skazzius, SK4ZZI0US.
Yes, and you can join us at 9 on the 3rd. And we look forward to seeing you then. So thank you for joining, everybody, and we'll see you later.
Take it easy, guys.